White Sox fans, welcome into the Sox On Tap Sunday Funday. It's season 6, episode 10. Johnny Nani here along my guys, NWI Steve and Tony on Tap. How we doing this fine Sunday evening, gentlemen?
Hey, yo, boys. Doing very well. It's nice to be hashtag back with yous on here, and it's always good to get together over a couple 2-3 pops and talk about a Road Series win. Let's go.
Steven, I see you've got the old Kentucky vanilla bean. What is the name of that beer? You brought those over yesterday for some Kentucky Derby horse racing, and I have to say those were fine beers. It would have been a whole lot nicer though if you were here for our season 6 episode 9 show. But Johnny and I tried to hold down the fort. It was a nice show. I hope you got to enjoy it, Steven. But cheers, crack 'em. Sox got a series victory on the road, and we're going to continue the nice theme here, Johnny. That was a nice series for the White Sox.
Very, very nice. That's the title of this episode, Rare White Sox Road Series Win. Sox take 2 of 3 down in St. Louis. So we'll have plenty to talk about from that series and a few other notes as it pertains to the roster, things going on in White Sox land. And as always, we'll take a look at what's on tap next with the series, another road series coming up in Tampa Bay. Before we do any of that, make sure you go over on YouTube, On Tap Sportsnet, subscribe there so you don't miss a show. Follow us on the socials at Sox On Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet, and go check out ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports, literature, and podcasting needs. Guys, let's jump in. Hey, Road Series win, like we talked about, the whole theme of this episode. Sox are now up to 8-26, tied with the Rockies. Now we're not alone in the cellar of MLB, but overall, guys, I got to say, odd game on Saturday, but they did prevail. And you got a nice, clean, crisp ball game on Sunday here to take this series. So it was nice to get that first road series win of the year, second series win overall. So, hey, things at least trending a little bit better over this past, week and a half or so.
The series was kind of interesting. We saw a little bit of everything to kind of encapsulate the 2024 season thus far. We saw a game on Friday night. Team didn't hit, got shut out for the 9th time already this year. And then Saturday, they jump out to an early lead, surrender 5 runs in an inning there, fall behind, battle back to tie things up, and then ultimately end up winning a game in extra innings. Have a bizarre rain delay situation when you're 1 out away. That's so White Sox right there. You're one out away from getting a win on the road, and then you have a torrential downpour come and happen, and with the bases loaded and 2 outs, and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, what is possibly going to go wrong when play resumes here? And look, Tanner Banks went out there, got the job done. I personally think CB Buckner made a great call on that final pitch. I saw nothing wrong with that strike zone whatsoever. So,
Steve, we've discussed this a number of times on the show, but any call that goes for the White Sox is totally fine and good for the game, and anything that goes against them is Mickey Mouse BS, right?
It's hashtag confirmed. I mean, it's science at this point. It's incontrovertible. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's look, sometimes a team, you could use a little break like that, and we'll take that. And then today, Garrett Crochet rebounding very nicely, threw the ball better his last outing against the Twins. Obviously gave up the 2-run homer to Sox killer Carlos Santana, and then went out there today. The biggest difference that I saw really from the outset with him, and I've been beating this point into the ground at this point in the season here, is going out working ahead of hitters consistently, not falling behind. That was really the biggest issue that he was having in that 3-start stretch where he was getting knocked around a bit here today, but he was consistently getting ahead 0-1, 0-2 in counts, allowing him to set up that breaking ball and some of the other pitches to put guys away. There was very soft contact against him aside from the home run by Wilson Contreras, but overall you got to feel really positive about the bounce back outing today from Garrett Crochet.
Steve, you said a lot of things there across this whole entire series, but Johnny, I want to bring it back to this. We predicted this. We predicted this 2-win series, man, and I just have to say kudos, cheers to that one. Sox were able to get this done this weekend, and it came via a very, as Steve, you alluded to this, interesting situation that happened yesterday. I know we got to take in the win together. We didn't watch most of the game. In fact, I think we got to see 36 seconds of yesterday's White Sox baseball action, but we were there in the garage. We got to see them win the game. That was a strike. We all know it was a strike. CB Buckner was excellent on that call. And then today's win was just absolutely fantastic. Garrett Crochet, Steve, you sort of stole the thunder on this one, but it was a great bounce back performance from him. I know we got to see some flashes earlier this year. Then there was, some cause for trepidation, a little bit of, struggles through the past, 2-3 starts now from him. And then today, I thought he got the job done very well. He doesn't have to be our ace this year. I don't think anybody's asking him to be, but this is the kind of thing you want to see from Garrett Crochet. There's been a lot of talk about, is he going to wind up in the bullpen? What do those innings max limits look like? Today, he went pretty deep into a ball game and helped get the Sox a win. So I think that that's a positive that we get to sit here and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Garrett Crochet front, felt like a return to form of those first 2-3 starts of the season. So that was very nice to see. I liked the timely offense that came into play in both of these wins. Obviously, there was no offense on Friday. But once again, Tony, we're talking about predictions. I think we were both expecting that with Sonny Gray on the mound. So that wasn't too shocking. And then the offense with Corey Lee, he got some timely hits. Gavin Sheets, multiple doubles. Eloy, home run. Love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, they really kind of pieced things together here offensively, especially today. Obviously, Eloy, providing the big blow with the home run, but you see guys like Robbie Grossman going up there, hitting doubles. Thomas Pham doing what he's been doing since he put on a White Sox uniform, getting some timely hits. Braden Shoemake, putting a little duck snort in there to play to run. So kind of came from a variety of different sources here today, and that's definitely something that you want to see, having some nice balance throughout the course of the lineup here. Yesterday, Corey Lee having the a big hit in there, and Lee's a guy that I think a lot of people are starting to take notice of here, and just some of the improvements that he has made offensively so far through the first month of this season in comparison to where he was a year ago. In fact, you may even see some words about this, maybe about 1,400 words or so on this very
foreshadowing
topic.
You got going on here, Stephen?
Yeah, you may see about 1,400 words on this very topic tomorrow at a little website known as OnTapSportsNet.com. That's not a prediction, folks. That's a spoiler.
Ooh. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. My browser can't handle White Sox wins. Freezing up on me again, but I'm back. I'm back in the convo, guys. But you're talking about your Corey Lee piece, Steve, in there?
That is hashtag confirmed. And listen, Matthew, I know I know the best words. I use all the best words. It's very well documented.
I'm looking forward to it because it was funny, Tony. Remember when we were talking on Thursday's show and with the Corey Lee stuff, and that was one of my criticisms from John Triffin from earlier in the season, right? When he was talking about star in the making. I'm still not going to go out and say star there, but the positive signs are there at the plate. He's got more speed than you think. I know he did get thrown out trying to steal a base on Saturday, but there is a little more speed in that game than you think. And then he's got a pretty strong arm too. I believe he topped out at 86 on a throw down to second during that Minnesota series. So some intriguing things, at least with Corey Lee. And
was
it's
that
really
the hardest
positive.
Throw from a catcher all season? Guys,
yeah, I think
they threw a graphic up there, and I was very surprised by it.
It was on, from Wednesday's game, I believe. Yeah. But what I was going to say is it's a huge departure because I was pretty down on it after seeing him basically not able to hit a baseball during the final month of last season. And I thought we were in for it. Like, okay, maybe he could be okay defensively, but then you're looking at like a crater in the offensive category there. But not the case, at least as of late. So I hope we see more of that from number 26 there.
I think the encouraging thing is, I know sample size is still pretty small, and this is obviously something that we have to be mindful of. And I think a lot of us, myself included, can fall prey to this at times of sample size theater, getting too up when things are going well and getting too down when things go badly. But the thing that is interesting to me, at least, is that there's been some noticeable improvement at the major league level. This is one of the biggest criticisms that, we've had about this organization. Anthony and I, we spent a lot of time talking about this over the course of the winter here when we did our rebuild project, and just how a lot of these guys stagnated by the time they got to the major league level. Now, again, it's a very small sample size here, but we've seen some noticeable improvements in a variety of different areas for Corey Lee offensively through the first month of this season. It's going to be nice to see if any of these can stick, because if he can be a guy that can be a piece of a catching tandem going into the future, whether that's with Edgar Caro, who everybody is so high on coming over from the Angels, is the key piece in that Lucas Giolito trade, or someone else. If you can actually have stability behind the plate, that's something that this team has not had since AJ Pierzynski left in 2012. So if Corey Lee can be a piece of that equation, I'm not sitting here anointing him as an everyday starter or a guy that's going to be an all-star, but if he can have these material changes stick and be something that will project into the future there, and he can be a guy that is able to be a part of that catching tandem, that will go a long way towards helping this team from a roster composition standpoint.
I agree 100%. And I think it's important to see this, like you said, development at the major league level feels like something that has been, stagnant for years and years. And then it also negates some of that rush to, the calls for Edgar Caro to get called up maybe earlier than he should be. Because at this point, let that guy marinate in the minors, especially for a catcher. That development is not the same as a regular position player. There's so much more nuance to the position. So I think it's, just a positive, at least on that front overall, with strides Corey Lee is making in his game, and then what it means for, like you'd outlined, Steve, the catching outlook as a whole going into the future.
I think what's wild about this entire thing is you probably wouldn't be seeing this from Corey Lee if Max Stassi was healthy. And that's a guy that jumped on the opportunity to prove himself here at the major league level with an opportunity that was really gifted to him on sort of an unfortunate circumstance. But we were going to ride into this season with Max Stassi and Martin Maldonado as your 1-2 catcher pairing. So Corey Lee sort of, if we're going to look at this, he sort of backed up his opportunity here with very solid performances. And I think that's something too that we got to take into consideration here when you're evaluating this entire catching tandem that's going on right now. I know a lot of people have been down on Maldonado and, what happens when Stassi comes back, or if he ever does. I don't know if he's ever going to get behind the plate for the Chicago White Sox, but holy shit, man, like that was making the most of your opportunity, not even just like stalling out at the major league level, as Steve was talking about with some of these White Sox prospects. This is a guy that had an opportunity, took the bull by the horns, and has really done a good enough job to warrant Steve writing 1,400 words about him.
Yeah, I got to highlight this comment. I got to highlight this comment from Matt. It says, when Stassi comes back, there's no excuse if Maldonado doesn't go the way of his hair away, which I think is hilarious. If you saw Maldonado behind the plate yesterday, he now has a shaved noggin. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I've been vocal about the Martin Maldonado stuff. I don't need to beat it any more into the ground. So.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback one last thing on this here, Anthony, what you're talking about there with Corey Lee taking the bull by the horns, and as White Goodman would say, that's a metaphor for how he runs his business. But Corey Lee going out there and making the most of this opportunity here. How many times did we see during the last window prospects and guys coming over in trades just being anointed and being handed jobs, and the development then ultimately stalling out, but they're cemented in their positions. And you see a guy like Corey Lee, who was a first round draft pick, much to Anthony's surprise. When I told you this yesterday, he was a first round pick in 2019 and a teammate of Andrew Vaughn at Cal Berkeley. So this is a guy that had some prospect pedigree here. Got an initial cup of coffee with the Astros in 2022, struggled, came over last year with the Sox, struggled, found something in his swing and made some changes over the course of the winter that has led to him having a nice month to start this year. There's not a lot of guys that we have seen within this organization here, whether highly touted prospects or not, that have really forced the issue, so to speak. And we've talked about this a lot, and especially with some of this newer crop of prospects, whether it's Colson Montgomery or Edgar Carroll, guys needing to make them force the issue. Don't just hand them the job because they're on that top 100 prospect list. Make them hit their way into the major leagues. Make them earn that job. And we're seeing Corey Lee do that right now. Again, it's only a month, but we haven't seen that a lot. So this is a guy that I would definitely like to see continue this, because I think that's just really a positive sign for the organization. And maybe from a development standpoint, I would love to know what the staff did with him over the course of the winter to make some of these changes to lead to this improvement that we've seen. Because even just looking at the eye test last year, he didn't look like a major league hitter. That's not the case right now.
Right. Spot on that one. So more to come on Corey Lee in Steve's article coming over at ontapsportsnet.com. Be on the lookout for it. Let's talk about another youngster, guys. Brian Ramos gets the call to the White Sox on Saturday after Danny Mendick was placed on the 10-day IL with some lower back tightness. But Ramos, obviously a member of the 40-man roster, so that limited the maneuvering that they had to do. So despite a pretty slow start at Birmingham, he gets the call. I will say, to his credit, I think he was riding an 8-game hitting streak into it before the call up. So the overall numbers still didn't look good, but the recent trend was at least a little more positive. He finally makes his debut. I know people are going to joke about it. We got it in here. Was Brian Ramos' debut the most Pedro move ever? Because he came in defensive replacement on Saturday. I will say at least he got the start then today, as probably the only true third baseman on the roster. Initial thoughts, reactions to Brian Ramos joining the club?
I'll go real quick here. I saw Steve call him the third baseman of the future for the Chicago White Sox, and so I have to know why that is. And Steve's here to hype you up on Brian Ramos.
Well, listen, ultimately what it comes down to is I was seeing, some of the highlights over the last couple 2-3 days from
I thought you weren't watching prospect highlights though this year.
Well, no, hold on a second here. I was seeing some tweets of some highlights and things from friend of the show, Matthew Crawford. Everyone knows I'm a Matt Crawford guy.
So if Matt Crawford sends you highlights, it's okay. But
I'm just saying.
Other than that, you're not going out of your way for prospect highlights?
I'm just saying, if I see a tweet on my timeline from Matt Crawford that says promote, it kind of gets the blood flowing a little bit. And when I see that tweet from Matt Crawford, I say it in that voice because it just gets me hyped up. I'm a Matt Crawford guy. I'm not going to hide it. So, but in all seriousness here, what it comes down to with Ramos, like Jonathan said, he's on the 40-man. So it was the most logical move. He's had a slow start here in Birmingham. I don't think that this is something that is going to stick around or be a long-term situation for him. I don't think he has warranted the promotion at this point, but again, the 40-man roster positioning is kind of what this all comes down to at this point. Hopefully while he's up here, he plays well, helps him build some confidence. Whenever it is, he goes back down when Danny Mendick comes back from his IL stint, and whether he goes back down to AA Birmingham or if he goes down to AAA Charlotte there and can continue building some positive momentum here. And hey, listen, if we maybe see him back up for the last 6 weeks of the season, cool. Obviously a lot of that's going to kind of depend on the health status of Yohan Moncada and some of the other roster maneuvering that's going to go on here. But it would be nice if Ramos could come up here, have a modicum of success, and then just use that as a building block here, because he is someone that is being looked at as part of, a potential plan for this thing in 2025 and beyond. So having some success, I think, would be good, obviously, and it would make us as a fan base feel a lot better.
So small sample size theater, as Steve had pointed out earlier on this, but just what we have to go off of. It's only been 2 games, right? When he came in as a defensive replacement, there was that one play at third base that was pretty infuriating with the throw home. And you thought, like, God damn it, is this just another bust here that we have? But he got in the starting lineup today. He got the start at third base and drove in a run in the second inning to get the Sox on the board. So that's his first MLB RBI. And then he got his first hit later in the game as part of that kind of White Sox was it 4-run inning there. So that was at least positive on that front. And it's nice that at least looked a little bit comfortable at the plate, whereas I feel like some guys look absolutely lost when they come up from the minors. And once again, small sample size, but that's what we have to go off of. So always a cool moment when you have milestones too. First MLB hit. That's how many people don't even make it to the show, right? So he got it, and it'll save that baseball forever.
I don't have much else to add to that. I mean, his debut, at least starting, you can't ask for more than that, can you?
I think the best part about it, though, was in the post game in the clubhouse when he was being interviewed, when he uttered the famous words that apparently is kind of a rite of passage in the White Sox clubhouse. "Beat it, Merc."
I'm not going to hold my breath on this just because it's Pedro, and we've gone a number of segments on this show about Mr. Clean, but I at least hope he stays to his word and this guy actually gets a look, even if it is just this brief a little over a week long stint that it will be by the time Mendick's eligible to come off the aisle. But I hope that he sticks to his word, because he said he's here to play, he's not just here to sit on the bench. So I hope that's the case. We'll see. Today got the start, so that's at least one notch for Mr. Clean in keeping his promise or staying true to his word on that front. But we'll see how the series in Tampa goes, and then they'll be back home against Cleveland next weekend. So anything else from the series that stood out to you as good or bad? I was going to comment on the bullpen. I was very happy to see the nice bounce back as a whole unit after some meltdowns that happened during the Twin series. And I understand there's a little bit of taxation from that Tampa Bay series, right? That bled into the series against Minnesota. But you also had then guys, okay, when they finally did get their rest, you had a Jordan Leisure meltdown instance. You had a Michael Kopech coughing up a lead instance against Minnesota. That wasn't the case. Everybody did their job this week. And I think it's going to fly under the radar because it was one of the shutouts. So that's going to be the headline from that. The nine times, the Ferris Bueller meme, right? Cue it up for Friday. 9 times. Yeah. But guess who saved the bullpen? Jared Schuster coming up, long relief. He's been very reliable in that role in the 3 outings that he's had, pitching at least 2 and change in each of those outings. So that was nice to see. And then guys stepping up, doing their job and weathering that storm, going down to your very last guy available on Saturday, Tanner Banks, stepping in and having to do it against a righty. Probably not the matchup you'd wanted, but the one that you were forced into, because that's all you got. And the only other option, I guess, left was Schuster, who's a lefty as well. So Banks was the guy to do it. He locked it down. He's got some nice innings from Steven Wilson, Jordan Leisure, Michael Kopech on Saturday as well. I know Dominic Leone had a little bit of a back tweak, but they said that shouldn't be anything too major. It doesn't sound like an IL there.
Did that help us in hindsight?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if the game went longer, you'd say no, but maybe just the way it played out, maybe it did.
Obviously the bullpen did really bounce back nicely over the course of this weekend here, and that is certainly a positive. And the lack of length that the starting rotation has provided them has been a significant issue here. And I know everybody knows how I feel about starting pitchers and the requirements I expect out of them. They haven't been living up to that a lot of late. So that is going to obviously have a significant impact on the bullpen and their effectiveness from a long-term standpoint. It's obviously frustrating at times when bullpens go out there and when they blow leads late in games particularly when you're on a team that's struggling the way that the Sox are, and when you feel like you have a chance to win a game. So, as the immortal Hawk Harrelson used to say, the best way to protect your bullpen is with your starting rotation. And the Hawkaroo was right.
Yep.
Is that the first time he was right about something, Steve?
Hawk's been right about a lot of things. I mean, it's been well documented that Hawk was right about Brooks Boyer. Fucking snake.
Yeah. There will be some reinforcement in the rotation coming too. We'll talk about that when we get to the next series preview here. But one guy I wanted to point out for a bounce back in particular was John Brebbia, because you got to see, the game on Wednesday against the Twins was a disaster, and that thing went off the rails with him on the mound, eating up most of that damage. That was rough, and you felt pretty down on him because it's like, what, a veteran guy that should, it's not just like a rookie that's being thrust into it like Leisure. You can forgive some of those. You're like, damn it, Brebbia, lock it down. And our guy Besnick always like to say John Big Balls Brebbia, right? Well, he was John Big Balls Adjuster Brebbia on Saturday, the way he was trying to keep the baseball dry, putting it the only place he could in between his legs. I thought that was hilarious, made for a good clip, and obviously the performance then on Saturday and Sunday as well, backing it up. So I just thought that was kind of funny. So some props for John Brebbia. Gets former team too.
Does Besnick say that in between tweets, asking if a 3-2 lead will hold?
I believe he didn't say it on Saturday, though, and they won. Look at what happened. I didn't see it today either. So
I didn't see it today. Maybe he stopped. Maybe he stopped this.
Yeah. Maybe
word on the street is he got yelled at for it.
Yeah. He is getting some backlash. I mean, he is just asking a question, but at the same time, the timing of it is usually in the past.
The timing is heinous, Johnny. I mean, like, if we wanted to go like Law and Order SVU, it'd be like, you could see.
You could almost say borderline terrorism.
I can hear the theme music for Law and Order SVU. Bum, bum, will this 3-2 lead hold?
Yeah. 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 I totally agree with that. But hey, bullpen got it done there. I really hope that doesn't lead to, then another letdown here in the series, because they're going to, it was quite an outing with everybody having to be used Saturday. So we'll have to see how it goes, but hopefully that rotation, like you said, Steve, can protect with a little bit more length against the Rays. So that about wraps it up from the series. Nice to get a road one finally. That's the title of this episode. Guys, let's move on to a little bit of this and that. And I thought we were going to be done with this after Thursday's show, Tony. Yes, this is what Sox fans want. We visited the John Schriffen saga and everything that had gone down with that, right? All those developments that we had up until that point of our show on Thursday, Tony.
Hey, Steve, and then on Friday, before we get into this,
and then on Friday, we get the pile on. It was pile on Friday, as Besnick said, because you had the lingering Jeff Agrest one from Thursday night that was, like I said, overly critical of John Schriffen there, and laid out that he, didn't speak to a couple of radio stations and didn't comment to the Sun Times. And then Sun Times doubles down with another one that was like a veiled threat at the end. And I just could not believe that, because next time we won't be so nice. Quite literally, Steve, you had to break out this is, greaseball, threats here. Like, what are we doing from, like, I couldn't believe it. I was honestly shocked. And I hope that rational Sox fans are like laughing at that, and you're not actually like buying into that and like, oh yeah, no, he's got a point there, because it's very evident that they're upset that he's not getting into their publications or their shows for ratings. And then you see the attacks. I mean, they made a full 670 score segment out of the pronunciation of Vec, right?
This was the back page of the Sun Times newspaper.
Right. And then, like I said, sitting at Harry Carey's of all places, talking about announcer.
But hey, Mark Potash said that Harry didn't start mispronouncing names till he was in his 45th year of broadcasting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yep. We can make exceptions for certain ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look.
You guys thought on this whole saga, because I don't know about you. I couldn't help but laugh at it. So I had to make jokes about it to even process it. That's how I had to deal with it.
I've got a number of thoughts on this. First and foremost, I think it's pretty fucking embarrassing that a major newspaper in a major market would publish the article that came out on Friday. Basically, like like I said, making greaseball Italian mob style threats to a guy saying, hey, don't double down on things. We'll teach you how to do that. And next time, if you do it, we won't be so nice. What the fuck are we doing here? Like seriously, what that's like, oh, you crossed, the child of a mobster's kid on the junior high playground, and then, they give you a little warning, in the neighborhood. Don't do that again. Otherwise, there's going to be repercussions for it.
Yeah, that's a lovely family you got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to them.
Right. Like seriously, this is what we're doing here because the guy doesn't want to give you interview requests. I think there really seems to be a misunderstanding that is going around on the interwebs right now as it relates to John Schriffen. So let me clear up a couple of things here as it relates to my position on this, because I've seen some things kind of leveled at me a little bit here. I think that Schriffen has been okay to this point. There are things that I haven't liked to this point. I think saying guys like Corey Lee and Lenine Sosa are superstars in the making. Obviously, that's going too far. Okay. At the end of the day, this is a guy that is in his first year, in his first month as a play-by-play voice for a major league team. One of 30 jobs that exists. Okay. So he's obviously going to be mindful of the fact that he's very fortunate to be in the chair that he is in. Is he probably going a little bit over the top with the positivity in certain circumstances? Yes. But this whole thing that's going around about the mispronunciation about Bill Veeck and everything, I can see both sides of that argument. And I actually saw somebody bring up kind of an interesting point about this here is, Chris Kamka and his absence from Comcast Sportsnet Chicago, or excuse me, from NBC Sports Chicago here, and kind of helping to prep some of the play-by-play stats and some of the information that is used during the course of the broadcast, is losing a voice like him being impactful to a guy like John Schriffen that's not from this market. He's not Jason Benetti. He didn't grow up with Hawk Harrelson. He didn't grow up with White Sox history. How impactful is that right now? I think Schriffen has good qualities to him, and I think he's got other things that he needs to refine. Again, he's in his first month on the job. I talked about this in one of the pieces that I wrote during the course of spring training. If you go back to 1982-83 when Hawk was in the booth with Don Drysdale, I'm sure there are things that he was doing in that booth that were different from 2005, 2006-ish, because over the course of time, you learn things, you try things out, you see what works, what doesn't. So is John Schriffen a final finished product right now? No, he's not. But this nonsense that just is going on in this pettiness within the Chicago media, the whole haters thing, and I know a lot of people seem to be just really hung up on that fucking word. Like, oh my God, he dared use the word haters. I feel it was very clearly directed at one person and one group in particular that seemed to be ragging on him because he dared to get fucking excited when this team that was off to the worst start in the history of their franchise actually gave him something to be excited about. And they just wanted to fucking rag on him about it. That's who the haters were. And there's this segment of fans that seem to think that he's calling the fan base themselves haters. That's not what I'm interpreting out of this here. So again, is John Schriffen a finished product right now? Do I think there's things that he can improve upon with his delivery and with his broadcast in general? Absolutely. But some of the stuff that is going on right now is just so fucking over the top. It's nauseating. And this is supposed to be a major fucking market. This isn't Rochester, New York here, for God's sake.
It's not Rochester, New York, but damn, do we act like it in the Sox fan base. That's my takeaway from this, because this is what draws people in. This is, like, unfortunately, this is what draws people in. Guys, we run a website, we write about things, like, we can monitor what's going on and what people are talking about and trends and all that other shit. This was the biggest thing in Sox news this week. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't fucking be, what does John Triffin mean when he's calling out the haters? Like that to me, that this is what happens with this team so often. Like, look at some of the biggest headlines that people know the White Sox for. Right now, it's John Triffin, and did he call out his own fan base? Because that's what we've cooked up. If you go back to last August, it was, where did the bullet come from? These are some of the most fucking ridiculous headlines that you can make up for this fucking team. But that's what sells when it comes to what are the White Sox. It makes no fucking sense to me, guys. But that's what people want to fucking latch onto when it comes to this fan base. Sorry, if you write an article and say that other teams in the city are trying to capitalize off our misery, you might get flipped off for it. But that's the truth. People want to fucking latch on to the stupidest, most idiotic storylines that can come out of this fan base and this team playing baseball. That's what happens. That's reality. It is what it is. Look, Steve, everything you said about Triffin and like the whole sense of him not being a finished product yet is completely true. I think we all will sit here and say it's way too early to make a judgment on whether or not he's good, bad, somewhere in between that at calling White Sox games. But right now, everyone's going to latch onto that and try and skew whatever it is that's going on just to sell whatever it is they're trying to do to whoever their audience is. So if there's a chance that you can sit here and go, wow, he called the fan base out, we're going to run with that. And the proof is in the pudding. When it comes to that article that was in the Sun-Times, we can't even spell the guy's name right. Our editor-in-chief here, Johnny Nani, sitting right on this call, was able to find a misspelling of the guy's last name in the article that was published.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy to me, because we sit here, we're not major media in Chicago by any stretch of the imagination. But if my editor-in-chief can go out there and find that you spelled the guy's fucking last name wrong, and then you've got guys on 670 The Score commenting on mispronunciations, and we're fucking writing articles that are on the last page of the Sun-Times and all this other shit, when you can't even spell the guy's name fucking right, what are we doing?
I can't figure out why newspapers are dying.
Wait a second. Everybody makes mistakes?
Where's that being afforded to John Triffin, right?
It hasn't been. That's the exact point. No one will afford him to make a mistake. No one will afford him the opportunity for growth. No one will afford him anything because Jason Benetti was fired or left. And that's even a debate. If you look on your Twitter timeline, did he leave? There's nothing clear with this organization, and it leaves it in such a fucking place that major media outlets can spew their own narrative down people's throats, and they will believe it. That's the sad part. There are people who believe what these people write just because of the brand they're associated with. That's the problem.
Right. And I think Matt brings up a good point in the comments here. He says, I agree with the take there, but the reason these random highlights hit because the team isn't serious about winning and it's hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel. Totally agree. It's a very unfortunate situation there. That's we all know that we'd much rather be talking about, a winning product and what they can do to improve and, piece together a roster to weather injuries and get to a postseason berth. That's unfortunately not the case right now. But you get stuff like this. The thing is just I can't believe that it went that far on this particular topic to the point, especially Matt, I just cannot get over that wording. The next time we won't be so nice. Like you said,
do you think we're done here? Like I that's a question for both of you guys. Do you think we're done here? Because I don't even think we're done here.
I doubt
this is
it.
Gonna rear its ugly head.
I don't. And there's listen, if we're gonna put let's put our tinfoil hats on for a second here. There's some speculation and some rumor and innuendo going around on the interwebs and some very dark corners here that maybe part of the reason why 670 is going so hard on this is because one of their cohorts got passed over for the job. So
I wonder what dark corners of the internet you found that on.
I don't know.
Yeah. Tinfoil hat time. Tinfoil hat time on a Sunday Funday with Sox on Tap, a tradition unlike any other. You heard it here first. I mean, it's, you can make those connections potentially, maybe, but I thought Connor was very gracious in his message when John got the job, right? I remember seeing a tweet from him at the time, so I maybe it's like you said, people in his corner then on that front, maybe fueling some of the over the top criticism that we've seen in recent days. I don't think we're done with this either, so we'll keep the tracker on it, guys. I would just, I told this to Tony on Thursday's episode, Steve, letting you know here too. I'd like to at least maybe week here at Sox on Tap and keep a level-headed evaluation running throughout the season. Maybe we can, do the periodic John Schriffen check-in, things that we like, things that we didn't, things we see he's improving, maybe things he still needs to clean up. And, we do like all-star break check-in and check in like entering the last month of the season, stuff like that. I think that would actually be beneficial and level-headed talk for reasonable White Sox fans.
And I think that's actually fair. I think this fan base the two guys that directly preceded him, there's a segment of the fan base that isn't going to like anyone because they're not Hawk. I grew up with Hawk. That is the voice of my childhood. Okay. That is who I came to know and who I came to be synonymous with White Sox baseball. So there is a segment of the fan base that no one will be accepted.
He taught you who the good guys were, correct?
He did.
Yeah.
He did. He taught me that good guys wear black. Okay. But there's a segment of the fan base that are never going to accept anybody because they're not Hawk Harrelson. And then you have, I think, a younger set of the fan base that is not going to accept anybody because they're not Jason Benetti, because Benetti's quirks and some of the things that he did endeared himself to that segment of the fan base. And so because John Schriffen is neither one of those guys, he's getting shit on from two fronts, basically.
You gotta be bleeping me.
You do, Hawkaroo. You do, Hawkaroo.
Thanks, Hawk.
And it's fascinating because I don't know if it was Merck or whomever it was, but somebody got some words from Hawk on his initial impressions of John Schriffen, and he spoke very positively of him. But, that's not good enough to make the headlines, though.
Yeah, right. Yep. It's the situation that we find ourselves in. So, we'll let the ongoing John Schriffen saga play out and give you our takes on it. But like I said, we'll get down to some brass tacks and tell you about instances that we like, don't like, improvements we think he can make, things where he's excelling at. We'll do all of that here on Sox on Tap. So keep it tuned in here. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, on Tap Sportsnet, for that upcoming. All right, guys. Speaking of upcoming things, we got a series in Tampa Bay as we take a look at what's on tap next. 3-gamer, all 5:50 starts, I believe, Central Time. It's TBD for the opener, but the belief is that Mike Clevenger is expected to join the team and be the starter for that. Tampa starter is still TBD. And I believe we've got Soroka Tuesday and Eric Fetty on no. Who are we going back to? Keller, maybe?
Either way. It should be Keller. Yeah, it should be Keller on Wednesday.
Newcomers in the rotation here. Guys, thoughts on this series? Obviously swept them so far, undefeated against Tampa Bay this year. I was on the south side, got to go down to the Trop. You see weird things happen all the time there. Balls getting lost up quite literally in the ceiling. So it feels like that place is always like a house of horrors, just because of I don't know, it's just like an ugly looking place. And the Rays have typically been good, while the White Sox have, labored over the past few seasons here. But thoughts on this one? How's it going to shake out? And new reinforcement in the rotation, old friend.
Actually, I just looked, and tentatively, Chris Flexen is.
You're flexing. You're flexing for Wednesday.
I don't know. That's I think that's some Italian reference. I see it on the timeline now. I don't know the reference, but anyway.
He's just not cultured.
Listen, they swept Tampa, obviously, and the Rays are a little bit down this year. Historically, though, like you said, the house that was built for Jerry has not been very kind to the White Sox in recent years. I think it will be interesting to see what they get out of Mike Clevenger tomorrow here, assuming he does make the start, as is widely reported. How deep into the game they're going to be able to go with him is going to be a little bit interesting. First time on the mound in a major league setting, adrenaline pumping a little bit. They may only be able to get 5 innings out of him tomorrow. Obviously, you would look to get more given how taxed this bullpen has been of late. Just recent track record leads me to think I think the Sox will find a way to get 1 down there. I'm not particularly confident on Tuesday with Mike Soroka throwing. I just don't think that there's anything there. Johnny, you really touched on things very eloquently on the show last Thursday with his issues commanding the strike zone, walking more guys than he is striking out, not missing bats. And there's a lot of things to be concerned about. So I would personally, I'm good being done with the Mike Soroka experience at this juncture here. I don't really need to see much more from him right now. But if they're going to stick with him, that doesn't bode well, in my opinion. So I think they find a way to get 1. And with that 1 win, that will mean that the White Sox will win a season series against a team this year. So make it happen, boys.
Yeah, just need 1 there. That's a rare position for them, right? Because it feels like we've been swept by like everybody to date. But that was our rare sweep from last weekend. So, Tony, thoughts on this upcoming 3-game set?
I think you get 1, maybe 2 in this one. Obviously, the sweep of them at home is playing into my judgment here. But, I'm also sort of hesitant to say that the Soroka start would be one of those wins. I think Clevenger comes up, maybe surprises some people. He was really good for the White Sox last year. I know it's going to be unbearable on the timeline tomorrow, but I think that he's going to be able to provide you maybe 5 to 6 innings of some good pitching. And then, we'll ride it out on Wednesday if that's Flexen or someone else. I think you've got a path to win another series here, which would be the first time the Sox win 2 series in a row all year, which would make us very, very happy here at Sox on Tap. So I think there's a way that we get 2 out of 3. I'll go as far as to say I'm predicting 2 out of 3.
All right. I'll take 1. I think we'll probably steal either Monday or Wednesday on getaway day there. This is not the same Tampa Bay Rays team of years past. They are not playing nearly as clean baseball as they had done so in their teams that seemingly put together 90-win clubs consistently for a payroll of $2, right? That's what they did down there. They're always living on the margins there. Something had to give, and I could not believe we swept them last weekend there. But that shows you, I'm not saying they're collapsing as a franchise, but maybe the magic's wearing off a little bit. So at least gives you some hope that the Sox can pull out a few. Timely hitting will be huge in this one, though, guys, for the White Sox. We saw some of that here against St. Louis. Maybe you're facing a little bit better staff in terms of, what's up front, and then guys they can bring in from the bullpen there. Because I know St. Louis has had some shaky relievers in the middle of their bullpen. White Sox were able to capitalize on that. But, there's a chance. At least not going into this saying it's a auto sweep like we were earlier on in the season. So I want to see some more timely hitting. That's what I'm looking for.
Be nice to also see the Tommy Pham revenge tour continue, as he was a former Tampa Bay Ray. He did some nice work against the Cardinals here this weekend. Go down to Tampa, maybe put a couple 2-3 bombs, in the seats. That would go a long way. And as I alluded to on the timeline earlier today here, it would be really nice, and it would behoove this team if Eloy continued to slug the way that we saw him here this afternoon.
Yeah, it was nice to see the home run, especially going to that right center spot. And he had talked about it briefly after the game, but he feels like, he's at his best. And, looking back at his 2019 season, sure, he could say juice balls, whatever it was. But if you remember, he did hit a fair amount of balls out into that right center, stands out there. I remember seeing multiple of them in person at the rate back in 2019. So using more of the field to do so could behoove him in getting those power numbers and slug up there. So, guys, that's about all I've got for this show. Any final thoughts, and we'll get on out of here.
I just like seeing this team win games, win series. They're back in front of the pace of the 2003 Detroit Tigers, which is something that unfortunately we have to monitor right now, given how bad the start was here. And my final closing thought is our use of the word behoove should put to bed this little notion that little voodoo has here in the comments about the vocabulary deficiencies that might exist here with yours truly and the rest of the members of this show here.
I think I used the word trepidation. He got very excited when I did that. I didn't know that this was a thing from our guy Voodoo X07 over there. Was he commenting on the lack of vocabulary that you use, Stephen?
He did.
Vernacular was in question.
He was, he's some might go as far as to say he's a little bit of a hater.
Ooh,
be careful. I've got
careful
haters all
word.
around. Oh, wait, no, I can't use that word. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. So he says he was complimenting you, but then he was, But
he's calling out my co-hosts. Hey, man, the vernacular here is impeccable.
We do words here. At Sox on Tap. So that's a good final thought. Mine would be, let's win a season series against the team, because you don't know how many they're actually going to be able to do. I mean, the Twins already clinched the season series against the Sox already. So let's turn the tables, take a series from another team. It'd be nice to do it against the Rays, because they always annoy me with, like I said, that 90 win roster for $2. It's literally what they do. And it's satanic black magic, sick shit. And I've seen enough of it. I want it to come to an end. So that's all I've got for this one. Make sure you subscribe over on YouTube at On Tap Sportsnet. Give us a follow on the socials at Sox On Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. And check out OnTapSportsNet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs, where that Corey Lee piece from Steven will be dropping in the near future. So, guys, that's it for this episode. Sunday Funday. Rare White Sox Road Series win. Love to see it. Until next time, White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.
White Sox